What's up developers, and welcome back to a new video where we will be kicking off a new course on this channel, which is Symfony. Quick pause. Do you want to support the channel and want me to continue on creating content? You can support the channel on Patreon right now, where you can get benefits such as a private Discord group where you can share your coding issues and other developers who will help you out. If you are interested to join, the link will be in the description down below. I have created this course to teach people one of the best PHP frameworks, which is Symfony. But the course is not everything. But that's something that you need to realize as well. You need to put time into Symfony if you want to become great at it. It's the dedication that you have to put in to learn something. And that's the advice that I want to give you before we start this journey together. Many people ask me, when am I ready to learn a framework? And I do understand where the question is coming from, since there are many obstacles along the way. I could sit here and tell you a lie that you need to watch this entire course and turn off your ad blocker, of course, but I won't. You do need to have some knowledge before you get into this course, so let's go over the things I expect you to know before you start off with this course. It is important to have a bit experience in front-end technologies like HTML and CSS. JavaScript is not a must, but would be fine if you do have some experience with it. For the CSS part, we will be using a CSS framework called Tailwind CSS, which is something I fell in love with over the last couple years. It's not difficult to learn Tailwind, you will definitely get used to it during this course, but I've also got a separate course regarding Tailwind, which is linked in the description down below. The most important skill that you need to have is obviously PHP, and specifically object-oriented programming. We will be using terms like extends, classes, interfaces, objects, scope, and accessibility. I will cover them quickly, but on a very basic level. Besides that, you do need to have a good understanding of MVC. You don't need to be able to create an MVC structure with your eyes closed, but you do need to know the concepts behind of it. You should know that a controller handles logic, sends data back to the view, and a model interacts with the database, and so on. Now, what is Symfony? Everyone that's here watching these videos might be here for a different reason. One might be completely done with PHP and want to learn something new, or you want to make your development process a little bit easier by learning Symfony. Before we dive into coding or me showing you what the difference is between the different PHP frameworks, let's take it a step backwards and talk about Symfony itself. If someone asks me to describe Symfony in just one sentence, I usually say that Symfony is a full-stack PHP framework that uses a set of reusable components. In my opinion, the usage of a framework is very beneficial, since it allows you to use so many tools that will help you to improve productivity. And those are the two words you'll hear from pretty much everyone when it comes up to frameworks. It will improve your productivity. Whether you're a starter working for a company or a freelancer working on projects, it will cost you a lot of time to create an application from scratch every single time. And that's where a framework such as Symfony comes into play. I'm not the type of person that wants to rank frameworks by saying that Laravel is better than Symfony or Symfony is better than CodeIgniter. I just want to share some advantages of using a framework such as Symfony, not compared to Laravel or CodeIgniter, but compared to plain PHP. Now the first one is faster development. Before frameworks ever existed, writing web applications did differ a lot than it does today. Nowadays we have a ton of frameworks that makes it easy to create web applications since everything is predefined. The second advantage is components. With the usage of any framework, you're using pre-packed collections of third-party components. Think about a configuration file, service container, prescribed directory structures, and so on. Finally, you can reuse pieces of code. If we think about an application that is entirely built in PHP, you need to think about a lot of little things. Think about your HTTP request, router, configuration, or how to load views or controllers. These are all points that you start thinking about when you work on a project on your own. Every single programming language has its own set of coding standards. Most of them will be equal to another, but there are some slight changes here and there. I want to start off by showing you some basic naming conventions and structures that we'll be using during this course, and it's probably something you will be using your entire career. Most of them will speak for itself, but I don't want to leave you mind blown later on when I do something that we haven't talked about. The reason why coding standards are developed is not only to make it easier for you, but also for any other developer that might look at your code in a later phase. Also, a quick note, these coding standards are not created by myself, but they are from the official website of Symfony. So it's not that I made them up, but they are all out there on the web, and I will link them in the description down below. I'm not going over them in depth because if you're familiar with object-oriented programming, you will understand most of them. Now the first one is to add a space after each comma delimiter. Whether you define array items or properties, you'll need to add a space after each delimiter. The second one is to add a single space around binary operators. Binary operators are things like the double equal sign, the double ampersand sign, double pipe bar. Whenever you define them, make sure that you add a single space around them so that you see what the delimiter is and what the value of it is. The third one is to use braces to indicate control structures bodies. This one speaks for itself. You need to use your braces, so your curly braces, when you want to indicate control structure bodies. Then we need to define one class per file. So whenever you want to work with multiple classes, make sure that you create a separate file for them. Don't add multiple classes in one .php file extension. Number 5 is to declare properties before methods. Methods are actions and properties are qualities. A property returns information about an object that you might want to use inside a method. So make sure that you declare your properties first before you declare your methods. Number 6 is to declare methods in the following order. Place your public methods at the beginning, followed by your protected methods, and then your private methods. Next to the structure coding standards, we also got naming conventions. It is very important to use camel case, so the first letter is a lowercase and every word after starts with a capital. Now keep in mind that you need to use them for variables, functions, methods, and arguments. Use snake cases, so a underscore with all lower cases, for configuration parameters and twig templates. We will be using something which is called namespaces, and namespaces should always be Pascal case. So every first letter of a word should be uppercase, including the first one. Whenever you're going to use interfaces, traits, or exceptions, they should all start off with a capital. So interface should start with a capital I of interface, traits with a capital T, exceptions with a capital E. There are several ways on how you could approach this course. You could say, well, there are loads of other courses out there with more videos and more time, but is that really the key? I like to keep my courses short and to the point. Not every single topic in Symfony will be a separate video because you'll be using certain elements within a different video. If we take a look at our global course overview, we will start with the introduction, where we're in right now, followed with the installation and configuration, followed with the controllers and routes, views and assets, databases and doctrine. We're going to create a project and build on that. Then we're going to dive into authorization and authentication. We're going to write a unit test, followed with mailing and notifications. Early in the day, web development was totally different. Next to the components, developers were responsible for writing the code for the business logic as well. Most of you guys know that there are loads of frameworks and libraries available, which will make your life a lot easier. With PHP, you will be using a lot of components and packages. And why not? Because there are so many available. Frameworks like Symfony and Laravel pre-package a collection of third-party components together with custom frameworks. Well, what will that be? Think about things like configuration files, service providers, prescribed directory structures, and application bootstraps. This all will define the benefit of using a framework. Someone has already made decisions not just about individual components for you, but also about how those components should fit together. Now then, we have our source code. The source code of this tutorial will be available through GitHub, as you can see on my screen right now. You can find my GitHub attached at the beginning of every single video. We will most likely have the same interface, and in the top left corner you'll see something which is called main, with a drop-down menu attached to it. The main repository will be basically all branches that we got. Now every single video has its own branch, as you can see right here. So from video 5, we will start creating code. As you can see, there's also a pattern right here. It starts with a number, followed with the title of each video. So if you only need the source code of, let's say, video 7, you could simply click on 7 of route parameters. And right here, you will find all source codes related to video 7. Now in my GitHub, you will also find something which is called a README down below. And this will basically be a summary of every single video in text. Let me show it right here. So we got chapter 1, Introduction to Symfony, what we're doing right now. How you should use this course. Let's scroll down. What do we have more? MVC explained. Setting up Visual Studio Code. Setting up our project in directory explained, and so on. Once you're tired of my voice, which I can understand at some point, You can easily open my GitHub, scroll down to any chapter that you need, and you will basically find what we've talked about in the tutorial. Most developers will agree with me that you develop your skills by running into issues and finding the solutions yourself. How I like to work is showing you both the happy path and the unhappy path. If you don't agree with that, you will find out later in your career that knowing the unhappy path is a life changer. Next to that, if there are multiple ways on solving an issue, I'll be showing you them as well. And I'm also giving a recommendation of what you should use. That being said, this was it for this video where we went over the basics of Symfony, talked about how you should approach this course and why you should be using a framework. If you do like my content and you want to see more, leave this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button.